responsabili pentru viitorul nostru. Din cauza încălzirii globale și a poluării, mii de specii de animale și plante dispar în fiecare zi. Totul începe la educație. Dacă am învățat la școală responsabili pentru viitorul nostru, am putea să este necesară implementarea de animale și educația climatică.
Este esențial ca educația privind schimbările climatice să nu fie introdusă ca o disciplină separată, de sine stătătoare, ci să fie integrată în cadrul disciplinelor existente, cum ar fi științele, educația civică, geografia, istoria și artele.
Pentru mine, educația legată de schimbările climatice înseamnă un pas înainte. Un pas înainte către o planetă mai sănătoasă, către rezolvarea încălzirii globale și către un viitor mai bun pentru noi toți.
Educația climatică trebuie să-și găsească locul ca materie obligatorie în ciclul secundar de pe glob. Elevii vor să știe mai multe despre prezentul și viitorul lor.
Schimbările climatice reprezintă o problemă alarmantă cu care societatea noastră se confruntă în momentul de față. Educația privind schimbările climatice ar trebui să fie o materie școlară, deoarece schimbarea începe prin
3, 4 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
tinerii generații care reprezintă viitorul.
Trebuie să învățăm
Unu, doi. Unu, doi, trei, patru. Unu, doi, trei, patru. Unu, unu, doi, trei. Unu, doi, trei, patru. Probă. Unu. Unu, doi, trei. Unu. Unu, doi, trei, patru. Unu, doi, trei. Unu, doi, trei. Unu, doi, trei, patru.
Zi ce faci? Nu e. Nu, dar mă spune, vrei să vin aici? Mai bine. E microfonul. Da?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, probă.
Atunci mă duc acolo, dacă o să știi că nu ai nevoie de mine aici? Nu, eu nu. Vă duc că te aștept să nu sună aia de la emisie. Bine, și atunci știi cum fac bine și trec eu la pauză. Hai, da, așa mă duc acolo. Da? Sau ceva de mâncare atunci? Hai. Da? Eu după ce termină asta am văzut cu ăla. Îți dau și fără 1 și fără 2? Da. Da?
Da, numai să nu fie sub o cremă sau chestii.
Așa. Ok.
1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Ia, uite și stai în mijloc acolo și zi-mi cum se aude în sală. Amplificare. 1, 2, 3, 4, probă de microfon, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Mă auzi, da? E ok? Mai trebuie? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, probă de microfon, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. E ok, nu? Unu, doi. Unu, doi, trei. Unu, doi, trei, patru. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 2, 3. 1.
Probă de microfon, engleză, probă de microfon, se aude? Ah, ok. Aceasta este o probă de microfon. Bună dimineața, doamnelor și domnilor. Probă de microfon pe canalul de engleză.
Adică,
Trebuie mai tare, nu?
Suntem în 2022. La mulți ani, bună dimineața, aceasta este o probă de microfon pe canalul de engleză. Bună dimineața, să citesc din carte, a fost odată ca niciodată, că de n-ar fi, nu s-ar povesti. Doctorul era o somitate în profesie, ar fi putut în atâția ani să-și închidă cabinetul, să-și schimbe adresa sau pur și simplu să îmbătrânească și să moară. Dar ce fericire imensă, incredibilă, locuia tot aici păzit de un câine în lanț. Femeia cât un munte cu privirea de ursoaică flămândă. Haț să-l își făcă și-l mâncă.
Eu am căștile mele și să nu se piardă.
Vrei să continui povestea? Să continui cu ursoaica? Pe canalul de română? Pe 1.
Unu, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Asta e tare. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Bine, doamna, căștile alea, hai să trebuie să le are pe ei. am cesat. Da.
1, 2, 3, 4, probă de microfon, 2, 10, 2, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, nivele ok. Să știi că se aude un pic înfundat. Eu mă aud un pic înfundat. Parcă aș avea un compresor. Mai subțiază, e mai bine. Lasă-l așa.
Nici la mine n-am fost. E, păi, e engleză, e un duș. Ia la tot masa. Foarte fină cum bune. Eu la urmă engleză. Da, ca aia zic. Da.
Ia, poate găsiți o soluție. Era un pic, dar da, acum e un pic mai tare.
Că de-aia am și pus asta.
Eu mai tai de nou, nu așa, de ce?
E un diagram, degeaba.
E un țăpărit la volan, da?
E mic de tot, da.
Fă traducere? Zero separat. Mai de unul. Schimbă sticker în timp, uitați sticker în timp. Vrei să-i pun testa la tripla noastră? Și acum... Mai trebuie 10 și 20 sunt toate la linii? Nu, nu tot. Wow. Am probat o casă.
Nu intră nimeni în sală.
Da, Dana. Unde? Că nu văd prezentarea mică. De aici, pot să stau la pupitul? De aici o văd. Vreți să stau aici? O văd. O văd pentru că cunosc conținutul, numai să văd ce schimb, știți? Ca să nu fiu chiar în orbește. Bine. Am și aici. Eu sunt... Eu... Deci eu sunt pregătită la orice scenariu, da? Și dacă se întrerupe curentul și tot să știi că eu țin publicul în priză și I will entertain them.
Așa e, pentru că tu la vei vorbești cu dumnealor și cu public.
Bine, telefoanele nu le iau. Deci îmi iau asta și atunci, perfect, că...
Astea sunt multe, și ca și ele așa.
A, nu, ăsta e raportul de la ascund. Le-am acum la mine, dar nu o să le-am.
Să cred că ai dat print.
Am dat print.
Ele sunt așa. Știți mă de trebuie dat print și de mine.
Hai repede să-l ascund. Ți-am spus că mi-am adus geanta, îl pun în geantă. Bun. Clicăitorul, cred că poți să-l las atunci. Aici, nu?
Probă de microfon, canalul de engleză, probă de microfon. Bună. Bună dimineața, probă de microfon pe canalul de engleză. La mulți ani, în noul an.
Unu, doi, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, probă. Unu, doi, trei, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Say that.
1.
Bună ziua! Vă adresez rugămintea de a vă ocupa locurile în sală și de a seta telefoanele mobile pe modul silențios. Vă mulțumesc! Vă adresez... Mergi masa. 20. Mergi. Vă adresez rugămintea de a vă ocupa locurile în sală și de a vă asigura că telefoanele mobile sunt setate pe modul silențios. Vă mulțumesc! Vă adresez rugămintea de a vă ocupa locurile în sală și de a vă asigura că telefoanele mobile sunt setate pe modul silențios. Vă mulțumesc! Sosește excelența sa domnul Klaus.
His Excellency Mr. Klaus Werner Johannes, President of Romania, is arriving.
Se intonează imnul național.
We will now listen to the Romanian national anthem.
Bună ziua, Excelența voastră,
Your Excellency, Romanian President, Prime Minister, Ministers, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests and organizers, dear colleagues. My name is Ligia Deca. I am Presidential Advisor on Education and Research, and it is my pleasure now to be the moderator of the first part of today's event. We will launch today the report titled Climate Change and Environmental Education in Sustainable Schools, drawn up by the Working Party created in 2021. This report has already been published on the presidency.ro site, and you can also access it through the QR code on screen. The protection of the environment is mandatory for a sustainable future. It's not a chance that the young people are the main actor to build a resilient and green Romania. Let's now hear their pleas for a greener environment.
Pas înainte către o planetă mai sănătoasă.
This should be a step forward to find solutions to climate working and a better future for us. Climate education should be a mandatory subject matter in secondary schools. Children want to know more about their present and future. This is an alarming problem our society is faced with at present. This kind of education should be a subject matter, because change starts with the education of the young generation, and the young generation is the future of our countries. We must learn how to be responsible. To me, education regarding climate change means informing the population on these matters. Citizens should understand what climate change is, what are the causes of these changes and how can we fight this phenomena. We need factual information. Technological progress is very important. The current technology helps us a lot, but we need more than that. It's very important to understand that greenhouses, all these affect the health of our planet.
Sunt responsabili pentru viitorul nostru.
We are responsible for our future. Thank you very much.
I will now give the floor to His Excellency Klaus Iohannis, Romanian President, as our official host today in order to launch the event. Thank you for this introduction. Prime Minister, ministers, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished members of the Working Party, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I should say I'm really glad to see how willing the kids we've just heard are to finally have in our Romanian education system classes dedicated to climate change and to the environment. I congratulate them on their implication and I urge them not to lose their enthusiasm. Education, environmental protection and fighting climate change are priority topics for my presidential mandate. These are essential fields on which decision makers focus way too little, and that is why I have organized within the presidential administration working parties and think tanks that will come with a series of concrete proposals. Such an approach ended by the Educated Romania project, which, thanks to the record amounts raised under the National Recovery and Resiliency Plan, finally gets the financial envelope in order to be put in practice. As a continuation of the Educated Romania project, we've decided throughout 2021 to create a working party within the presidential administration on the topic of climate change and environmental education. Today, we give you the results of discussions held within this group as a report that we'll submit for public debate. Education is one of the pillars for improving the way we answer to climate change, since it's education that brings about a change in human behavior for a better responsibility for the protection of nature and the future of our society. The report we launched today highlights a series of problems, but also comes with solutions in order to broaden access to education for the protection of the environment and combating the effects of climate change, as well as to lay the foundations for a green schooling infrastructure. What we wish for, though, is more than anything to open the way to a mindset change. I'd like to thank the members of the Working Party for their involvement, and I also thank all those who, throughout following weeks, will constructively contribute to the public debate. I'm convinced that we do have within our society other actors capable to contribute to enacting the best form of our proposals. We all wish a clean environment, devoid of waste. We all wish to not have our health endangered and to be kept safe from devastating extreme weather events. We can achieve this. We can achieve it through properly tailored public policies, through institutions in working order which enforce legislation, but most of all through our individual actions. That is why the environmental protection and combating climate change cannot be achieved without a partnership between the institutions and the citizens. This partnership will bear fruit if it will rely on combating fake news and on properly relaying information with regard to environmental problems and those pertaining to climate change. When conducting education on climate change and the environment in the primary and secondary education, it is essential to focus on the primary beneficiary of the teaching act, the pupil. The model we propose in the report launched today comes with a whole set of digital tools, apps, interactive handbooks, because we are now addressing a generation that is composed of true digital natives. At the same time, we must create for them the opportunity to learn about nature in nature, to understand what sustainability means by being in sustainable schools, and to become aware of the importance of protecting the environment by leading practical activities, applied activities intended to protect the environment. The schools where our pupils learn need to become themselves examples of good practices of sustainability in order to inspire them to adopt a behavior which goes in this direction. The benefits of teaching infrastructure, which is a green one, are undeniable, evidence-based, and start from, for example, the creation of a favorable environment for the development of kids and goes to the increase of quality in the teaching act and in the learning performance. However, education on climate change cannot be a solitary effort. The success of such an initiative depends on the involvement of a large number of different actors, governmental institutions, local authorities, teachers, NGOs, parents, communities, companies, the media, and so on and so forth. Therefore, I urge all these actors to take active part in the implementation of those measures that increase access to education on climate change and the environment. Good initiatives must be extended at national level so that all pupils may benefit of this type of education, irrespective of their background or the school where they learn. I am fully confident that the government will approach these objectives openly and with responsibility, will make it a national priority in close partnership with the associative environment, with the private environment, but as well as with the young people's representatives that we proved over the last year that they are at the forefront of this fight against climate change. I am convinced that Romania will find its partners in this fight, because no country is safe from the effects of environmental damage and climate change, and education is an important instrument in countering these effects. I invite you, therefore, to work together for an educated, healthy, and sustainable Romania. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very interesting and successful debate. Thank you.
Vă mulțumim, domnule Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to listen to a short presentation of the report presented by Alexandra Maria Bocșe, State Advisor with the Climate and Sustainability Department from the Presidential Administration. You have the floor, Alexandra. Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, distinguished guests, distinguished representatives of the working group. I will now present a brief information of the report on climate changes and the environment. In the beginning of this event, you heard some young people. They sounded very enthusiastic. They are interested in this type of education. On the other hand, we have international commitments. Let me mention the Paris Agreement, commitments at the national level in our governance program. But above all, there is an urgency in approaching climate changes and the environment. Education leads to behavior changes, and it is extremely useful in implementing measures to protect the environment. These are our proposals of measures to this effect. First of all, higher components regarding climate change in schools. I'm having in mind the school year 2021-2022. Then we will introduce a new week, the Green Week, starting with the year 2020-2023, 2022-2023. We have in mind geography and other scientific subject measures. We also propose the introduction of new subject matters and courses focused on climate change and the environment. Better educational practices in the same domain. In fact, some NGOs and some schools have already had such pilot courses. It is also very important to develop sustainable schools and improve the education environment. Applied sciences and new technologies should also be introduced in schools. We also support the development of local, national and international partnerships to involve pupils and children in various related activities. Last but not least, in our opinion, it is extremely important to provide support to the teaching staff. In this process, therefore, we have to devote resources for initial and all kind of education in climate change matters. We need to motivate them, but also reward them. Reward all those who are involved in this type of education. Our report also includes tools that can be useful to students and teachers in the education process. Such instruments are a web platform meant to facilitate the participation of students in environment protection issues, digital handbooks, but also traditional handbooks, not only digital handbooks. Free kits to measure pollutants in the atmosphere, free apps for schools, so as to be able to measure and analyze pollution factors as part of some school projects. Also, we also have in mind programs for the training of teachers, and contests on climate change and environmental issues. Also very important is to translate all these measures in practice. We have already had some steps that create the prerequisites to translate into reality the measures provided in the report. Last year, for example, the related legislation was amended. Some environmental issues were included in the law on education. On the other hand, some programs were developed by the civil society as well as by members of our working groups. These programs refer to this topic of climate change, to developing digital instruments to this effect. Such programs and initiatives should be expanded at a national level. In the National Resilience and Recovery Plan, some measures have been included. Let me give you an example: green spaces in schools and electric buses provided to schools. Well, there is still a lot of work to be done. In the forthcoming period, we will try to develop the recommendations made in the draft report. As it has already been mentioned, you can find it on our webpage. The report will be subject to public consultations between January 11th and February 11th, 2022. We are very much interested in your feedback, and you have the link there. It is very important, however, to work together so as to be able to implement the measures provided in the report. We need the involvement of public institutions to this effect, but also the involvement of schools, NGOs, parents, community, mass media, but also companies. These are some of the most important players in implementing the measures in the report. Thank you very much for your attention.
I would like to thank my colleague for the presentation of this report. As we know, the Romanian government is the main actor in reaching the objectives that Romania has undertaken for the sustainable objectives. We count on the support of Mr. Nicolae Ciucă, Prime Minister, that will now take the floor. Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished ministers, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished members of the working party, this report, Climate Change and Environmental Education in Sustainable Schools, is the result of the hard work of the presidential administration in cooperation with the working party. This comes as an answer to the commitment of Romania to this objective. Romanian citizens, especially young ones, are concerned about climate change. 93% of the European citizens consider that climate change is a serious problem, and 96% of them were involved in at least one action in order to combat this phenomenon. In Romania, we also feel the effects of climate change, drought, hard rains, inundations, flooding, extreme weather events, and red codes for heat waves are frequent this past couple of years. We've seen the hottest period in the last 10 years since the history. Two-thirds of the Romanians see climate change to be a very serious issue, and we need to find solutions. The European Green Deal is the mechanism allowing us to promote this issue in education and to increase awareness on this topic. For Romania, this is the basis for future measures and a model to follow in order to bring about profound economic and social changes. The Romanian government is committed to implement such tools that are comprised within the government program. These are measures targeted towards energy efficiency, regarding both the production and the consumption of energy, producing energy out of renewable sources, using state-of-the-art technologies in industry, proper management of fields, and proper management of waste. We aim to manage the CO2 absorption by planting new forests. And for all this, we have allotted around 12 billion euros, around 41% of the overall funding that Romania will benefit under this plan. These objectives will be reached through projects ensuring a green energy transition and an energy transition overall, and decarbonation. In other words, this will translate in a cleaner and safer, healthier life for our citizens. The future of the young generation depends on our action today, and they are already involved and committed to taking action in this regard. One of the pillars that our solution relies on is education. Education for the protection of nature and of natural resources. This report is a component of educational policies, and it promotes the respect for the environment within the values that are at the basis of our education system. In this report, we aim to correlate public policies with the major objectives of the education system, including, among others, environmental education, sustainability, and the climate. It's encouraging to see so much interest amongst young people for this topic of climate change. The survey conducted last year by the National Public Administration School shows us that this is an interest that is present at all levels, because the National Recovery and Resiliency Plan is not only the most important recovery plan after the pandemic, but it is also important for the protection of the environment. That is why I'd like to highlight some concrete measures. The support and the development of a green schools network, buying electric buses, and significantly revamping existing buildings in order to make them more energy efficient. I am convinced that the national strategy based on education should first and foremost address the vulnerable communities who have less access to technology, less negotiation power, and less funding in order to adapt their economic and social structures to the effects of climate change. I'm happy to see that the report presented here today comes up with concrete measures which are doable and quantifiable, be they measures aiming a change in the curriculum, new tools, or training and stimulating the human resources. All these measures have a proper ground and a well-defined purpose. The Romanian government is committing to mobilizing the resource so that these measures be implemented for the benefit of the citizens in the respect of the deadlines. the contribution of the presidential administration, of the education ministry, of the environmental ministry, of the schools, of the pupils, of the teaching staff, the parents, the NGOs having a rich experience in this field. Well, all this is a guarantee that this educational project will be implemented and will bear fruit. Even though we still have a long way to go, we still have to have public debate. This is a stage that will come up with new ideas. Certainly, I do believe that the report, as it has been presented today, allows us to start preparing right now. We all know that which we aim towards, which is a change of mindset and mentality throughout the whole generation, represents a lengthy process. We are, however, in a context of urgency. We are aware that the time is not our best ally today. That is why we should act right now and efficiently. On behalf of Romania's government, I would like to congratulate the Working Party and the presidential administration for this project, and I assure you that the government will actively take part in this process that will lead to a cleaner environment and a healthier life for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Tănțoș Borno, Minister of the Environment, Waters and Forests. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, ministers, ambassadors, distinguished members of the working group, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to salute the initiative of the Romanian presidency, the launching of this report, Education on Climate Change and the Environment, as well as the measures included in this report. The whole planet has been affected by climate change. The latest effects are real disasters and actually change our environment. Species disappear, green areas disappear. We have fires, devastating fires. The levels of waters, of seas, oceans has increased. So all these are natural disasters. So our concerns, in fact, are almost equal. Our concerns regarding this climate change is almost equal to this pandemic. Climate change are a real burden and a very serious problem. The pandemic and climate itself have become urgencies. The state of emergency in the case of the pandemic and climate urgencies so much discussed and debated at the world level. So it is extremely important for us to get more and more involved and more of us to be involved. We've talked a lot about climate records. In Romania, for instance, starting 2012, we've seen the hottest period in our history of weather measurements. 2019 was the hottest year since 1900. The July of 2021 was the third hottest month in the last 60 years. Last year, Romania, at the end of June, had a red code, heat code, for a number of counties in Romania. We've seen a lot of disastrous situations. Last year, for example, we had 181 liters per square meter. It was a very bad situation, a real disaster. weather forecasts and weather data show that these are not the only phenomena that we have to take into account. We have extreme phenomena. In 2021, we had the largest number of red codes in the past 3 years. Many people ask themselves, what is the cause of this climate change? The answer is a very simple one, in fact, and we never like to admit that. We, human beings, we are to be blamed on for everything that harms nature. Whether we like it or not, we have to accept this. If we are the cause of this situation, we can also be the solution. Therefore, the launching of this report and the initiative regarding this report are part and parcel of this solution. Education, in my opinion, is one of the most important engines of a society that has respect for the environment, a society that wants a better future. This project, Mr. President, provides us with a lot of tools to prepare a responsible society in its relationship with the environment, a society that cares for the future. Teachers in Romania can play a significant role. They can support and assist children and students in understanding what's going on. About this report, the Ministry of the Environment, together with the Ministry of Education, is going to develop a strategy that will be transposed starting 2023-2024. It will be included in the school curriculum. We start with that generation that can bring in a different future for Romania. On the other hand, we run other programs to build a resilient society capable to cope with this climate change. And let me mention some programs, the Rabla Plus program that has been very successful because a lot of electric buses were introduced in Romania in 2021. This project was very useful because it supported the idea of zero emissions. And also referring to this report, I would like to mention the energy program for schools. We expanded this program. It involved all public institutions. Our budget is approximately 2 billion lei, and it has been appropriated at various territorial levels. We are going to appropriate a lot of money as part of the National Resilience and Recovery Plan. It also involves protected areas. As long as we tackle this problem of education, focusing on climate change, and as long as we invest and appropriate significant amounts, we will score positive results. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Minister. As the President said, education is one of the pillars to improve our action against climate change. So I will give the floor to Mr. Sorin Mihai Câmpeanu, Minister of Education.
Excelența voastră, domnule președinte, domnule prim-ministru.
Your Excellency, Ministers, Prime Minister, Your Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished members of the Presidential Administration and of the working parties, I salute this initiative, which is a very important one and represents a step towards normalcy. It's a step that proves that we have a long-term vision through education. This is an initiative without which we cannot even conceive of sustainable development. This is a moment where we have several overlapping opportunities. We have the Educated Romania project, which aims for a change in the curriculum. We've all heard that pupil that proposed that elements about climate change and the environment should be found in more cross-lapping subject matters. However, as Ministry of Education, and not only in my capacity as such, I do find that this is the right way. The wishes of this project will become a reality. We also have a timeline for that. These things will happen in an integrated way, which will include the sustainable development concept through environmental education and through raising awareness about climate change. The second element, which comes as an opportunity, has been highlighted by the Prime Minister. I'm speaking about the National Resiliency and Recovery Plan that has a green component. We have a package of 3.6 billion euro dedicated to education reform. Almost all the components reach directly or indirectly the environmental education, the green transition. The third element that comes as an opportunity is our national strategy for sustainable development, the 2030 agenda. And the fourth element is this report that has been presented and launched today. All these four elements are as many opportunities which are interlinked, whether we like it or not, just as the climate changes and the effects on the environment are now part of our life, whether we like it or not. And this is all we've discussed here today comes down to education, because as the minister said, we human beings can bring about change. Well, education can bring about change in the human beings. And we need to have these human beings that are capable to carry this project. And I would like to present another project that we provided our support to, and we will always support this kind of projects. Over 35 years ago, when not only in Romania, but not even in the world, people weren't talking as much about the climate change, I had an opportunity as a student prior to 1989 to take part in such a project. I drew up a document about the effect of greenhouse gas emissions on climate change, and I also spoke about loss of farming land, about landslides, combating surface and deep erosions, and so many other subjects. All this comes down to climate change. And I also had an opportunity to teach in one of the first faculties on the environmental engineering in Romania. And I think that thanks to all this experience and me being part of this ministry, the Ministry of Education will always take part in measures carried out under this report. This, I would say clearly, despite the fact of the pandemic crisis, we had some difficulties in our program, school in a different way, școala altfel. However, within the structure of the school year, we will integrate, and I support right now this proposal, a green week when pupils will be able to have classes in nature to see for themselves what are the effects of climate change on the environment, and to take the good and the bad, weight, and then perform an intelligent and informed choice. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I think that this introductory session proved that this is a week when we will invest for future generations. We'd like to thank the President for being our host and for his participation, and we'd also like to thank the Prime Minister. The second session is a debate between the participants, either present here physically or in the online, and the members of the presidential administration. My colleague, Mrs. Alexandra Maria Bosche, will moderate this session.
Please be seated. We will now have a debate between the public and our guests. Here present is the Minister of Education, Mr. Sorin Câmpeanu, my colleague Ligia Deca, Presidential Advisor with the Education and Research Department, and Mr. Țanțoș Borno, Minister of the Environment, Waters and Forests, and myself, Alexandra Maria Bosche, State Advisor for Climate and Sustainability. We invite you to a dialogue. So how are we going to do this? 1 or 2 questions from the public. You will have a microphone if you want to ask questions. And then we will get questions online from the participants who have joined us today, but virtually. First of all, do you have any questions here in this room? Mr. Laszlo Borbély. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Borbély Laszlo, and I run the Department for Sustainable Development. I'm an advisor, state advisor with the presidential administration. I would like to congratulate the presidential administration on this report, on developing this report. I remember in 2015, I was in Parliament and I was the head of the committee on this matter. I had discussions with 2 ministers of education at that time. I even sent them a letter. In that letter, I mentioned the introduction in schools of this topic. We, in fact, are making decisions for the future generations. Apart from the new strategy for sustainable development, were the fourth objective, education, and the 13th objective, climate change. Now we are going to have an action plan until the year 2030. Therefore, our relationship with the citizenry is extremely important. The biggest challenge to us was the following: how can we approach this relationship with the young generation? We're kind of a catalyst. There are many people involved in various domains. We can be partners. Partners. This is a key word. Let me mention a few activities that will, in fact, make similar events happen again. A talented team using drones from various areas of Romania, approximately 40,000 students connected on Thursday at 11 o'clock online and participated in 16 lessons. We have a budget for this and we can go on with these lessons. So irrespective of the kind of education, so in that particular period they connected themselves. We have to get closer to children. How can we get closer to this new generation? Cartoons, for example, can be used. We have a wonderful, such plan with 7 objectives translated into 17 languages of the national ethnic groups, and they can access this. We will continue with this project, focus on sustainable development. But in fact, it's about education. We had a 5-minute play. It was a play written by children, and that play focused on climate change. It was also about sustainable attitudes. Every year, we had this canoe project with the Patsaikin Association in counties Covasa and Harghita. We have floating islands. We use cameras there so as to see how the biosphere changes. And this is not expensive. These are, in fact, some of our initiatives. Present here are ambassadors we have been in touch with. We have had relationships, and we would like to develop projects through positive energy, through partnerships. The government of Romania, the ministries can be partners of these wonderful people. We do have wonderful people. We do have a beautiful country. So let's do this. I think we have realized that we are going to be your partners in this project. Thank you very much for being an icebreaker. I hope the other participants had time to think of. I think Mrs. Lavinia Andrei would like to ask something. Please give her a microphone. I will ask you to ask 1 or 2 questions, and then we will go back to the panelists. Good afternoon. I'm Andrei. I would like to salute this initiative, and I congratulate the presidential administration on this initiative. It was an honor for me to be a member of the working group in this domain. I've been looking for this event for 20 years now. I have been working with an NGO for more than 20 years, but I've been waiting for this event for 20 years. I think this is a pledge for all of us. Education for climate, in fact, lays the foundation of our future development. I'm very happy to hear what the Minister of Education said. I'm happy that he is aware of the dangers. It was a pleasure for me to listen to the Minister of the Environment when he said that he wants to do more about climate change. As an NGO, we have committed ourselves to this project. We monitor the activity of the government representatives, of course, in this particular domain, in climate change. We also do education to this effect. We have trained a large number of teachers, more than 300 teachers. You know, so the time has come. Climate urgencies are already here. So my opinion is to all commit ourselves to these activities. The working group, we will continue with the working group, we will continue this with the projects to implement this project. Once again, I would like to congratulate you on what you have done. Thank you very much. Let's focus on the questions. I really appreciate everything that has been said here so far. Let's use this opportunity and have a dialogue with the two ministers present here today. I can see somebody wants to ask a question. I'm Andrea, the officer from Free Europe. I have a question to you, because you have been involved in developing this project, but also a question of the Minister of Education. For you first, the question addressed to you. What is the deadline for the implementation of this project, and what is the cost of it? And now the question that I would like to ask of the Minister. Minister, have you thought about who is going to train the teachers, and what grade will be the first to have this, let's call it subject matter? Any other question? Any other question? Charlie?
I think this is mainly addressed to Minister of the Environment, but I think this, congratulations first of all on this incredible initiative. It's something we've been hoping and praying for many years, and it's so exciting to see it taking shape. I just wanted to point out that I think whilst teaching children, you know, the serious ramifications of climate change and environmental studies, teaching them about conservation and the environment, I want to know whether we can be fearless in talking about what's happening here in Romania as well, because I think children need to know what's happening on their doorstep as well as what's happening globally. And Romania has to date one of the worst records for illegal deforestation, for example, and environmental abuses. And I want to know whether we're actually going to be teaching kids in this country what's happening here and educating them about the various things that are going wrong and teaching them how they might in the future help fix those things.
Mulțumim, poate mai luăm o...
Thank you very much. Perhaps one more question, and then we will give the chance for an answer. Good afternoon, Mona Nicolici, Europe FM. Allow me to congratulate you first on this report and for presenting to the public an extremely important report for this country. In fact, my questions are addressed to everybody. I'll try to be very brief. First of all, I'm interested in the Green School Network project. What ministry will be in charge with the implementation of this project? And what is the budget appropriated for this project? Where does the money come from, and where is it going to start? So this is my question. In the report, you said that those teachers who will be included in this project will be given an impetus. How? What does that mean? Minister Borno said that they're going to launch a joint strategy together with the Ministry of Education, a strategy on education regarding climate and sustainability. What is this strategy about? What do you intend to do? And when are you going to initiate everything? Thank you very much. Questions have been asked of all our panelists. We'll start with the Minister of Education. Minister Câmpeanu, you have the floor. Well, from when and who? The education regarding the environment has components that must be included from the preschool period. At a secondary high school level, there are components that can be included in geography, biology, economics, technological education, and other subject matters. Of course, depending on the age and the level of the students. Therefore, to attain this goal, we need to train teachers. In the National Resilience and Recovery Plan, we intend to train 145,000 teachers. Who is going? The question is, who is going to train them? Minister Borbély László has mentioned this, and I really appreciate the way they initiated cooperation with the university environment. There are human resources that are able to get involved in training the trainers on these issues. Together with our specialists in education, we're working on some plans regarding high schools that are going to be implemented starting 2023. We want, and I will support this, we want to introduce that Green Week. Practical activities will be conducted in the environment, in the natural environment. So we will combine theory and practical activities. Well, time is not very generous with us. However, this is possible, and we must do whatever we can so that we have trained teachers by 2023, but we also have a curriculum that meets the educational needs for climate change and the environment. In the National Resilience and Recovery Plan, the green transformation for 300,000 square meters has been provided. So we want to do this starting from scratch, from zero, because this comes out from the need to protect the environment. We have a partnership, we have available funds under the Educated Romania project. Part of these funds will be used to create new nurseries in cooperation with the Minister of the Development. Significant steps have been taken to design and transpose into reality all these things. I have given you already an example that is about nurseries. The respective buildings, the new buildings, will have to meet all the requirements so as to be green buildings. 3,200 school buses are going to be bought, but these buses are going to be electric buses. Just think, 3,200. Just think of this number compared to the current situation. And this will be at the level of the whole country, nationwide. And this is going to happen quite soon, I hope. I'm not sure if I have answered all the questions asked of me. If I haven't, please ask me again. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, the forest issue is a quite complicated one, especially here in Romania. We are a country of contrasts. We have the most virgin forests certified or identified in the European Union, but we're also the country that is threatened by infringement for massive deforestations. And this is unjust because in 2021 I haven't seen pictures of massive loggings. Of course, prior to 2021, for about 10 or 15 years, this was a reality. However, we've tried to recreate those habitats. With regard to education, the management of forests, protecting biodiversity in the forests, well, this should be the main focus of these classes or this subject matters, because we need to prepare future generations about the consequences of these illegal deforestations. Even though, again, I would like to say, in Romania, this is not at the level of what's happening in Brazil or in other countries where hundreds of thousands of hectares of forest are destroyed. Of course, climate education is needed, and it needs to also speak about protecting the forests, about carbon sequestration, about the protection of the species and conservation. This should be, I think, the most important element when talking about the environment. We still, yes, it's true, we still do have illegal logging because they are economically profitable. However, the measures taken by the authorities, at least over the last year, we have been worked. We have traceability measures, and I do believe that they will lead to a substantial decrease of this activity. With regard to green schooling or green schools, we shall have to define what a green school is. It doesn't simply mean to paint the walls green. It has to be a place where, first and foremost, people are educated differently, and the building itself should be energy efficient. But not only, we need to have a certain kind of attitude of the teaching staff. We need to have an involvement from the pupils and for them to contribute to sustainable development and to furthering this kind of mindset. I think that the human being needs to become green, so to speak. We need to have, of course, photovoltaic panels, but this simply doesn't mean that we also have a mindset change. With regard to the strategy, we are now in the implementation phase. We have the action plan and we have precise deadlines. We are committed to them. And if we speak about strategy and teaching, as it's previously been said here, we do have programs focused on a change in attitudes within the local administrations. They need to be sustainable with regard to the management of their real estate or their buildings, I think. And in 2021, we've seen here a substantial increase. We have seen hundreds of projects to have 2 billion lei for that. As I was saying, the implementation of the strategy is now has now seen the action plan, and we have deadlines. Ligia, yes, I would like to say two things. One of them pertains to the Green Schools network. On the one side, the report talks about new standards for school buildings, and we also have a funding source that both ministers talked about, that is the NRRP, but we also have other sources that go towards greening, towards the revamping of current educational spaces. I'm talking here about an increase in energy efficiency through structural modernization, through a diminishing of the carbon footprint, and of course the green schools, as they've been presented in the report, do not only involve infrastructure, but also science lab, for example, where the pupils may see what are climate changes, what their effects are, and then it also means a change in the curricula. Of course, the academia are ready to train the teachers or the teaching staff, but not only. We have experience from other projects. We've seen their impact in schools, and all NGOs or non-governmental entities that have led successful projects with regard to the protection of the environment, to fighting climate change, can also attest to that, and this can be scaled up and can be used for further teaching the teachers. We also believe that it is important, and this is part of the report, to be able to transfer credits in between fields and to have recognition of various experiences within the and throughout the teachers' careers. Maybe they have experience in the private environment or in the associative environment. And would also like to see clear provisions for various forms of rewarding or incentivizing the teachers. And I think that this report will be really helpful in answering the questions, the many questions we've received. Yes, indeed. Well, with regard to rewarding and incentivizing teachers, there's a series of measures that Ligia has mentioned. The transferable credits, we have financial rewards as well. And very interestingly, in the discussions we've had with the teachers, many of them told us they would feel encouraged by having the possibility to take part in various mobilities, allowing them to visit other schools, green schools abroad, for example, and to interact with teachers from other schools outside of the country. We have today here with us the distinguished members of the diplomatic corps. With their help, I'm sure we'll be able to implement such exchange measures. Some of the teachers also explained to me that they will feel incentivized by the possibility to grow professionally. We've had another questions from the room about the deadlines in the report. The report has just been published today. I invite you to read it. In the conclusion section, there's a table with various measures. Some of them have a deadline this year, over the next couple of years, but some other measures have deadline in 2030, for example, and I'm talking about measures relating to the teaching infrastructure. I hope that these measures will then help us throughout the education process. When kids are in a sustainable school learning about sustainable issues, we do hope that what they learn there, they will transpose later on at home. And I really do hope that this will help us reach our emissions reduction objectives. That's why we have this deadline 2030, because at European level as well we have this first couple of years to guide us, and then we have 2030 for the 55% decrease in greenhouse gas emissions and carbon neutrality by 2050. That's why we've taken 2030 as a deadline. It's a guideline for us. We also have questions on the online, so please do allow me to take a couple of questions from the online participants. There are quite applied questions. One of them, for example, is about the 3,200 electric buses, which are part, in fact, of the NRRP as well. And this is a question rather for the government representative. Will you take into account the training for the 3,200 drivers? I don't know, for example, driving classes or safe driving classes, or in with regard to the green schools, do you take into account to involve architects as well? So these are two of the more applied questions pertaining to the infrastructure. Another interesting question is this one. It somewhat pertains to the Green Week. What they say is the following, and it's a question addressed to Mr. Câmpianu. I think that the implementation of this report will be successful only if we manage to generate change in the system. How does Minister Câmpianu see the opportunity of this openness in order to include teaching outside all throughout the school year? So this person supports the Green Week initiative, but would like to know if there will be other opportunities for the pupils to connect with nature besides this week. I should like to say that we support this Green Week for logistic reasons as well. After the discussion within the working party, the teachers explained things to us. They told us that they need more time. They need time for the commute from the school to wherever the natural area is. And sometimes the fact that this takes so long makes things difficult. So we have logistic difficulties in this regard. We don't simply want to take the kids out in the school garden, but we'd like to take them to visit natural reserves, for example. We have a list of such areas in the report, in fact. So what's left is the question about the drivers and the Green Week and what we can do to allow pupils to connect with nature besides that Green Week. There's no training provided for in our plan for the drivers, but of course, why not within a partnership with the Interior Ministry. Most of the drivers are employees of the town hall, but yes, it's possible. However, way before talking about drivers, we should solve the problem of charging points for the electrical buses. This would be a more natural order of priorities, in my opinion. With regard to expanding education in nature, yes, we may get inspiration from several other models, but this is a rather new idea, and I would like to clear out another matter first, that is, what could we do in order to make this Green Week a reality in more schools in Romania, in all the schools in Romania, and then thinking about expanding that. And of course, there's the aspect mentioned of the time that the transfer from the school to the natural area takes. We have a national program to make pupils stay in school, and this program can be linked to this other one. In this project, we have remedial education classes. We have counseling classes. We have a component of school mediators, which are involved in this vulnerable schools, and they have a budget for example, taking part in trips, in camps, or in other such actions, allowing them, for example, when they want to visit a natural reserve, to pay for all that this visit will entail. So these are eligible expenditures under this program. And we also have a budget for sporting equipment, for example. What I mean to say is that we have a large array of measures alongside other measures such as school transport or lunch in schools or a fair scholarship system. Helping pupils stay in school and not leave. Well, all these are, in my opinion, opportunities, and this will be connected to what we intend for the Green Week to be and to represent for the schools. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the panel who would like to react? If not, we'll give back the floor to the public. Let's take questions from this side first and then from the other one. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to take part in this event. I would like from the very beginning to say that the National Committee of Romania for UNESCO will be a partner in this program, and we should remember that on the 24th of January we have the International Day of the Education, and we will be at the UN because there will be a report about how states manage to implement the fourth objective. This does not only concern Romania, this concerns everybody, which doesn't mean that if others manage to meet these objectives, the positive results will translate in Romania. So I would like to take the floor now to ask a few questions from the point of view of the experience we've already had. International cooperation is welcome, and we had an event on this topic on the 24th and 25th of September, and we said there that the National Committee for UNESCO of Germany continued their partnership with us. So we have their volunteers working in our natural reserves. We have volunteers coming to our schools. With regard to the partnership with UNESCO, we have also the French committee that is involved. The British committee has continued their support with the UNESCO chairs throughout Romanian universities, and they have a concept that they are refining, that is the concept of green schooling, changing the mindset. Well, now, this being said, my question, which goes to the Ministry of the Environment, given that this change of mindset implies a partnership with the university, with the community, with everything that happens within the community and the civil society, when do you think we will launch a call for projects, for grants going towards awareness-raising programs? Because school does what it can. However, who will take care of the adults? Couldn't we have some somewhat mixed activities involving both adults and youngsters? Romania is not present on the world map if in terms of sustainable cities. Maybe we will be successful in bringing alongside us the associations of the cities as well, and I would like to say that we will always be supporting you throughout all your projects.
My name is Dan Hula. I represent a deontological society. We're talking here about climate changes, but at the same time, we talk about mindsets and changes in behaviors. My question is the following. Taking into account that schools are paramount for change, how will the message go to local authorities where public policies are implemented? And my question is, how are partnerships going to be? Partnership between schools and local authorities. And I have in mind plans, strategies, financing. And Mihai Tudor Pasti, ministers, from the perspective of your ministries, what are the major risks or challenges to the partial implementation of this project? And I think another question. But first let me give the floor to the distinguished panelists. Let's start with the Minister of the Environment now. Thank you very much. Awareness for adults. We have this project, which we launched last year. It involves a 10 million lei budget, and it's specifically targeting this kind of awareness, a national awareness program. For instance, the one of the topics would be waste products. A few days ago, a sociological study was finalized recently. We will give you the results in a short period of time. It is a study that focused not only on adults, but also on adults. It's about, for example, waste management and selective recycling. And in one of the budgets, we have a national project. We will launch such a project with each town hall. Each town hall is going to have a budget to implement awareness projects at various levels, projects for adults in terms of responsible behavior. So it's about waste management, climate change, all these aspects. Well, what are the risks? The problem is with a lack of organization. There are certain requirements at national level, and there is, a problem with the way they're implemented at a local level. But I think we can have a proper approach and we can solve them out. I don't think this is a problem. Green schools, green weeks, education, all these can be coordinated for the Minister of Education, for instance, because it's a very well-organized system. So the levels go down to localities, town halls, and schools. In my perspective, it is the schools that are going to be more involved because their organization is better. Thank you, Mr. Campano, now. I would like to add something to what my colleague has said, the Minister of the Environment. Public policies, national public policies, are implemented by the Ministry of Education. We've had long debates about and discussions about decentralization. Decentralization is something that we desire in education. We promote this, but we don't want to affect Romania's commitment to implement certain national policies. And this will happen in education as well. We have organized contests for occupying certain principal positions, headmasters and principal positions, starting January the 17th. So we have the second stage. And we will have new principals in April when the spring break for children starts. So what we actually do is to sensitize the new principals. These principals will be principals of schools for 4-year periods. And this is also a cooperation between schools and local authorities. And in my opinion, we have all the chances to go on with the project. We also have a course to clarify certain aspects, for instance, the role of local authorities, the school inspections, quality assurance in primary and secondary schools. And there will be prerequisites for this project to be properly implemented. Of course, there are certain risks. You cannot do away with all risks, obviously. The major problem or risk could be too big concern for what's going today, tomorrow, and what happened yesterday, as against concerns that we have discussed here today. So what's going to happen to education in Romania on the long run? We may run this risk. We may focus too much on the short term and forget about these projects that can be in fact implemented on the medium and long run. We have all admitted that apart from environmental education, we also need to change mindsets. Thank you very much. Other risks, and I'm talking here about political will, financing risks. Well, our presence here shows that these risks are not very, very dangerous, let's say. I would like to add one risk. The risk to minimize the topic. Romania has a lot of challenges, that is very much true. And recently I heard this political statement, a statement about poor children in Romania and why should we deal with strategies regarding education for climate change when we have all these problems. But if we don't deal with this, we will have more poor people and more poor children. As a society, we should be coherent so that the future of our children will be a better one. This should be a priority that comes from the European space, from the international area. It's not something specific to Romania. There are a few questions here in the front row, I think. Good afternoon. I would like to congratulate the presidential administration on organizing this beautiful event for our society. I'm Botiș, I represent the Romanian Green Building Council. We have developed a certification system, Green Schools, the Green Schools project. We have, in fact, integrated the best practices. We are now having a course on certifying both public and private schools in Bucharest, Iași, and Cluj. Iași, Eastern Romania, Cluj, Western Romania. And this initiative has been welcomed by NGOs. It is operational, and we actually want, together with you, to contribute to the development of green schools in Romania. My first question is about the eligibility criteria for green schools. What ministers will take part in establishing the criteria? And my question is always, can we be part of these committees? Because we would like to contribute to the creation of these criteria. I would also like to give an answer referring to sustainable communities in Romania. Together with the Swiss Confederation and His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Swiss Confederation, Romania is present here today. We have certified 3 sustainable communities in Romania as part of the European Energy Awards. The Buzău Customs, the Iași municipality, and the Alba Iulia municipality. This is an independent activity, and perhaps we can benefit from your support. Thank you very much. Teodora? Elena? Good afternoon, I am Teodora Tim, DG24. You've talked about the minimization of this strategy. What about a refusal on behalf of the authorities and teachers? Because the minister said about changing mindsets, mentalities. What's going to happen in the rural communities about this strategy? We should include poor children in this, not exclude them. It's important to train them as well. And another question from the ambassador.
Mulțumesc foarte mult și
Thank you very much. I didn't want to interfere with the comments made by the Romanian participants. I would like to say that I appreciate very much this report and this initiative. I wish you a lot of success, and I wish you solve quickly the problems related to climate change. From our perspective, we work with English teachers. We've been working with English teachers for 2 years now. We train them so as to be able to teach aspects related to climate change. I would like to assure you that there is a lot of interest in this report. And in my opinion, it's going to be a very important step forward. I share a little bit Charlotte's opinions regarding the problems in Romania concerning the environment. But on the other hand, I think it is very important for the world to know what Romania has scored from this perspective. The reduction in the emissions, for example. I would also like to mention the economic successes by Romania over the past 30 years. There are many concrete examples, in my opinion. Thank you very much. I would like to, to add a question, online question. We have received this question. It's about the involvement of NGOs in implementing this project. The question refers to the sustainability criteria for green schools. I would like the two ministers to tell us how do they see the involvement of NGOs in this matter, and also about a national program on this. Minister of Education, yes. First of all, green schools. The Ministry of the Development has prepared rules. Also, the Ministry of Construction, the Ministry of Emergency Situations. There are rules, and these rules, in fact, will focus on eligibility. We can have consultations. You're welcome. I invite you here. We have the new Secretary of State from the Ministry of Education is present here, and we are very much interested in your ideas. Any idea is welcome. On the other hand, the financing of schools. 2,500 schools will get over 200,000 euros, so per school, and we're talking here about dropouts as well. There is at least 3,235 schools have been identified, and these schools are faced with a lot of dropouts. We are currently receiving requests for getting involved in this project to reduce dropouts. So 200,000 euros per school, for instance. Most of this happens in rural areas. There is a huge gap between rural areas and cities. So my question to the previous question. There are certain activities eligible for these 200,000 schools. The financing of rural areas activities and disadvantaged areas, because in those areas there are the most vulnerable schools in terms of dropouts. This is extremely important, especially and including this project, including education on climate change, on the environment. In those schools, their children haven't seen well-known places in Romania. We are going to approach this category of children because we want this project to be successful, especially in these areas where the gaps are huge. Romania has pledged to reduce dropout by 11.5%. In 2021, because of the pandemic, because of the medical crisis, things got worse. In terms of school dropout, we're below the European average. In rural areas, 1 out of 4 children drop out. And in order to prevent that from happening, we need to find elements to attract them, to make them quit this kind of attitude. There is financing, there is a legal framework. As a Minister of Education, it is a challenge for me. Once again, Romania, how can I say it? 53% of Romanian students have had great performances and great results. Well, perhaps I'm joking with things I should not joke about, but fairness is extremely important because this is a problem our education system is faced with. I'm trying to tell everybody that this first project that will receive 543 million euros is a priority for our ministry, and in a very short period of time you will see the first 750 schools that will sign the financing contract. So they will receive these grants amounting to 200,000 euros. So we want this to take place. It is a challenge. There are 3,000 schools eligible for financing. 3,000, more than 3,200. But the number will be increased up to 4,000, we will see. Then we will come up with a selection using some objective criteria. And from 4,000 countries that wish this financing, we'll go down to 2,500 schools. And out of the 2,500, we will choose the most vulnerable ones, applying these indicators. And the contract, the financing contracts will also be signed. This is an objective evaluation in terms of vulnerabilities, school vulnerabilities. And this will also include the hot lunch applied at the level of 150 schools. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure that the best schools, those who really need a hot lunch or a hot meal, let's say, have been selected. And the Ministry of Agriculture has such a project, more than 500 million lei. The milk and bread program. And then the project included vegetables and fruit. There are schools that benefit from money from all these programs, but there are also schools that don't get anything, because a meal would be very attractive to children in rural areas, because these children in disadvantaged areas may give up the idea of dropping out if they are given such a meal. But unfortunately, this is a problem in rural areas. We are going to make an analysis starting September 2022. We will expand this project and it will include the meals project to be included in schools, to make it possible in schools. And this is meant to reduce dropouts. And it's an important step to a quality education. Thank you very much, Minister of the Environment. I would like to give an answer regarding NGOs and their role in the implementation of a national project, such a wide-scale project. We really need the active NGOs whose activity is not to become visible, but they are target-oriented. %90 of the NGO's activity is carried out by those who are not very visible. So I really appreciate local, regional, national NGOs who perform such activities. They, are not hunters for visibility. Sometimes there are useless debates at the national level without the NGOs. Such activities could not be implemented. A lot of experience has been gained by these NGOs. They have carried out a lot of activities. Many of them are not known, perhaps, but they were extremely useful for schools, local communities. That's why I think it is of paramount importance to have a cooperation with these NGOs. Thank you very much. Thank you, the panelists, for their answers. Thank you for your involvements and for asking questions and for being here present today. We conclude this event now. We bid you good day and all the best.